All right, welcome everyone to the easy transition from JeppFD to ForeFlight. This is a webinar we're doing on, like you might guess, the transition from JeppFD to ForeFlight. And we just want to go over the basics of that transition, some of the background on why it's happening, why we recommend moving to ForeFlight, and the essential first steps to take when you are getting started with ForeFlight. So our presenters today are myself, Sam Taylor. I'm the content marketing manager at ForeFlight. And we also have Sam Gilliss, who is the market strategist for business aviation and general aviation at Boeing Global Services. So we're calling ourselves the Sam Squared Productions. So Sam, if there's anything you want to say right now.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Sam. Hopefully you can tell us apart by our voices on here, but really looking forward. And again, thank you everybody for your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. So our agenda for today, like I mentioned, we're going to have an overview of the JeppFD discontinuation plan. We'll also answer the question, why ForeFlight? And Sam Gilliss will talk about some of ForeFlight's products and values. Then we'll move on to the details on how to switch to ForeFlight. And that will include both, if you're an individual JeppFD customer, there's a free trial you can start today. If you're part of a group account, then you can contact sales and you can also start a free trial that way. Then we'll move on to how to get started with ForeFlight once you've started that trial, or even if you've just purchased the app, what you need to do to get ForeFlight set up so you can start planning, get your Jeppesen charts linked, and start using them in flight. And finally, we'll have wrap up and Q&A at the end of the webinar. So before we get into all that, just a few reminders regarding the GoToWebinar interface. You can ask questions via the questions panel on the right there. You just click that button that looks like a question mark inside of a speech bubble, and it expands the panel, and you can ask us any questions. We will be responding to questions directly during the webinar, both via text and maybe a few out loud, and then we will save the rest of them for the Q&A at the end. But please don't hesitate to submit any question that comes to mind. It's much easier for us to respond to all of them if you submit them just during the webinar rather than waiting until the end, and you have a much better chance of having your question answered if you submit it as soon as you think of it. We do recommend joining from a computer and not a mobile device. We've just found that GoToWebinar seems to behave a bit better when it's in a browser. And finally, this session is being recorded, and you'll be able to watch a recording of it starting tomorrow at foreflight.com/onfrequency, along with many of our other webinar recordings. So let's get into this. Sam, if you want to go ahead and take it from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Sam. So I would like to just basically talk about what is happening here with the JeppFD or the Jepp Mobile FliteDeck app. Many of you, if you're on this webinar, you probably received a notification through email. You may have seen it on our website. We've had some various notifications sent out, but you're probably aware by this point that we are going to discontinue the Jeppesen Mobile FliteDeck, which is also known as the JeppFD app. So that will be happening very soon, which we'll talk about here. I do want to just point out that the app itself is what we are discontinuing. There is no change to your current Jeppesen chart coverage itself. It's just the app that will be discontinued. And you know, when we kind of talk about the why on that, it basically JeppFD has been it's been a really good app. It's been around for many years. It's been a great app to help us in the transition from paper charts into the digital chart transformation and transition that we've been going through for many years now. But it is a singular purpose app. It basically displays your Jeppesen charts, and you can import flight plans into it, things like that, as you know. But that's about as much as it does. It's a fairly limited kind of a singular purpose app. So as we hear feedback from our customers and as we build out our strategy into the integrated cockpit, we have looked at ForeFlight as the solution that absolutely takes us to that and brings many powerful features for the cockpit and also for the back office for flight planning operations, and the synchronization and integration that it brings to you is very advanced. So it's our way to kind of continue into the next gen of flight apps, if you will. So that's kind of where we've made that decision. But like I said, at this point in time, there's no change to your chart coverage. It's just the app. And as of right now, prior to the sunset, there are three options for displaying Jeppesen charts on a mobile device. One, of course, is JeppFD, which is being sunset. There's ForeFlight, of course. There's also a Garmin app, a Garmin Pilot app that is an option to display Jeppesen charts. But we hope that you'll find, as we look at ForeFlight here, that it is a much better solution by far, with many powerful features in it. So that is what we will be talking about here. And just real quick, the sunset date is the end of this year for customers that are based in the US, because ForeFlight is really at that level that it can, it has full compliance. It is really a good option for US-based customers, both in the general personal aviation as well as business aviation. But as far as for customers that are based outside of the US, there are a few regulatory and regional requirements that are being worked on. So for those customers, it will be later in 2022 that we will sunset the app. But that's kind of the when there. So yeah, let's take a look at some of the features and benefits here. We won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but I think it is important if you haven't already seen ForeFlight. Sam will cover in a few slides here how to do that demo and trial. We really encourage you to do that because it's something that you'll see, and you can actually use it to compare ForeFlight along with your JeppFD app at this point, and you can really see the differences and how much better ForeFlight really works for you, not only in the cockpit, but also in the flight planning operations. So on the ForeFlight Mobile, this is the main mobile component, of course, of ForeFlight. Everything can be done through the mobile app. It features optimized flight planning. You can get flight briefings. You can file your flight plans. And the workflows that are used to do all that are just very easy to follow workflows, very efficient. So it's really a good platform for that. The ForeFlight mobile app automatically generates cleared as filed optimized routes. So it's a it's very easy to add your flight plan, but also to get the optimized route, and when you file it, you basically get those cleared as filed routes through there. So it's very, very efficient, very quick in that respect, and you get to do all that in one app without having to switch to another flight planning app. In the Eurocontrol area, Eurocontrol validated routes are cleared and returned within seconds. So very powerful flight planning engine that drives the ForeFlight mobile platform. And it does work on a global basis. Flight plans can be filed around the world. So it's very efficient in that respect. When you move up into some of the more advanced levels of ForeFlight, there's comprehensive briefing and navlog documents, and it provides information that is synchronized between not just the mobile app, but also into the desktop version that we'll look at here in just a moment. But that's really one of the powerful features of ForeFlight. And I don't want to sound too much like a sales pitch or sales person trying to get this sold on you, but it is exciting to talk about because we see all the powerful features in here that bring that productivity and efficiency into the cockpit. So there's so many more features like the in-flight moving map with overlays that are very easy to select, ADS-B, XM or XM weather, the alerts, the safety enhancing alerts, and so much more. But one of the things I did want to just point out here is that some feedback we get is that it seems like there's a lot, like almost too much in ForeFlight, but it's very flexible. So you can use it at a basic level when you're first getting started and learning the app, and it doesn't take much. It's very intuitive to learn the workflows in it. But you can use it and kind of keep it as simple as you like, and then when you start exploring the app and finding all the different features and the levels, the different advanced features that are offered. It's really exciting and fascinating to see how much is included and how helpful it is for your flying. So on the next slide here, we'll take a look at the desktop, basically the desktop version of ForeFlight, calling it ForeFlight Web. This is a very easy to use. You can do basic flight planning on the web. It's platform agnostic, so it supports all your popular web browsers out there. But if you're an individual user of ForeFlight, you can do basic flight planning that gets synchronized to your mobile device. But it's also there's some advanced levels of the desktop that I don't think we're going to cover too much in this particular session, but ForeFlight Dispatch is an extremely powerful kind of advanced version of the desktop flight planning that is very efficient and productive in flight departments that are managing and administering multiple tails with multiple flight crews on that. It really makes their jobs so much easier through some of those advanced features. But on the desktop version, again, there's flight plans, like I mentioned, that can be synced to your mobile device automatically. You can also add and remove pilots through this admin function. You can allocate Jeppesen chart licenses. You can have documents, whether they're company documents or any type of documents that are needed for your operation can be added. They're stored in the cloud and automatically synchronized to all the mobile devices. And obviously very important to monitor the chart and data currency that your flight crews are using, or that you may have if you're on an individual license as well. So very important feature there. And they're working on supporting Jeppesen charts on the web, on the ForeFlight web here. So that's what we're working on, which will serve as a replacement for the legacy JetView desktop version, where you may be used to pulling up jet charts and seeing them electronically, digitally, or printing. We're working on pulling that feature into the ForeFlight web version as well. So a lot of work is being done, and more to come very soon on that. So on the next slide here, I just want to cover the value, which there are many that you get from ForeFlight. There is continuous product improvement happening right now. Like I just talked about, we're working on pulling the Jeppesen charts onto the web desktop version. There's a lot of work being done like that. We get a lot of feedback from pilots and users and flight departments, and all that feedback is taken, and there's just a lot of work being done to build this, so we know that it's meeting the needs of our pilots and our flight departments. So it's not just built by pilots for pilots, it's continuously being developed by pilots and for pilots. So as I mentioned, our customer feedback is a very important part of that. There's monthly releases on the mobile and continuous improvements and development happening on the web and the back end. So there's a lot of resources being put into the development here. So a very good on that side. On the customer support side of this, it's truly the best of the best level of customer support. There's multi-tiered support team that ensures fast and knowledgeable responses. The average email response time is less than 10 minutes, which is almost unheard of in not just our industry, but in almost any industry. It's a lightning fast response time. And there is priority phone support available as well for BA customers that kind of need that level of support. So it's a lot that you get through this. And this is, like I mentioned, one of the reasons why we are discontinuing the legacy JeppFD app is we can put all of our resources, not just on ForeFlight, but also as a part of Boeing Global Services, into giving you the utmost top tier app with all the features and the powerful functionality it has. That can be very flexible as well, depending on, if you need more simple type of workflows, things like that. But it's very flexible and a very powerful platform that really brings the level of productivity and efficiency to new heights, not just in the cockpit, but also on flight scheduling and flight departments as well. So I think at this point, Sam, I'm going to turn it back over to you so we can talk about the switching and the transition over to ForeFlight.
Perfect. Thanks, Sam. And I do just want to stress on this slide before we move on really the value of the monthly feature releases. I think a lot of people, some people find this to be an almost overwhelming pace of releases because anytime you think about checking in on what's new in ForeFlight, it'll be a lot of stuff. But it's important to consider that what that really means is that when you pay for a 1-year subscription, pretty much no matter if you're buying our most basic plan, which is the Basic Plus plan at $100 per year, or if you're buying our highest tier with dispatch and all of these other add-ons, the value of your subscription when it expires is going to be much higher than it was when you first purchased it, because between when you purchased it and when it expires, there's going to be 12 feature releases during that year. And so it's really hard to overstate how impactful that is in terms of constantly delivering more and more value for in a given subscription year. So I just want to stress how important that aspect of it is.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, so moving on here, in terms of switching to ForeFlight, everything you see on this slide is going to be on the screen again on the very last slide when we do Q&A. So I'm not going to cover everything right here right away. But essentially, the process for getting started with a ForeFlight trial is a bit different for individuals and groups. We have set up separate web pages for this. So if you're an individual, you can go to foreflight.com/JeppFD. And from there's a button that'll take you to a page where you can sign up for the free trial. Again, this is a free trial that includes global Jeppesen charts. We did this because we didn't want you to have to choose between being able to use your Jeppesen charts with ForeFlight and see what those are like versus, continuing to use your Jeppesen charts in JeppFD, which is what you're used to using. We didn't want people to have to make that choice. And so we're giving you free global Jeppesen charts as part of that 30-day trial so that you don't even need to touch your existing Jeppesen coverages. You can just see what they'll look like in ForeFlight. If you're part of a business account, you do have to go through the sales team. They will set you up with the same 30-day trial, but you can email sales@foreflight.com or go to foreflight.com/JeppFD-business. And again, that's for the group accounts, the business aviation accounts. And from there, you can contact our sales team. So what I want to get into now is a series of short video clips. When you go to any of those foreflight.com/JeppFD web pages, you'll see some videos embedded there, as well as, I can't remember if I have the link on here. I do, down here, the third bullet from the very bottom where it says getting started. So foreflight.com/first steps has a lot of what we're going to cover here for the remainder of the webinar before the Q&A is going to be some of the steps you'll find on that web page. And that includes both downloading ForeFlight, getting signed in, getting set up with your Jeppesen charts if you're not starting with the free trial, doing some basic flight planning, all of that stuff. And so you can watch the complete video, which I think it's about a 7-minute video if you go to that page. But what we have here are just shorter video clips from that video, so that we can walk through each segment of it and comment on it. And so again, before we get started, I want to remind everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them. If you see something in one of these videos that you think, hey, I want to ask something related to that, please go ahead and submit them, so that we can answer your questions as we move along here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up that video and we'll get it started.
Search for ForeFlight in the Apple App Store and install the app named ForeFlight Mobile EFB. After opening the app for the first time, tap I have an account and enter the email and password you used to start your trial.
So as you can see, it's very easy to get started with ForeFlight in terms of just signing in. This does assume that you've already started the free 30-day trial, and having done that, you will already have set up an account with a username and password, and that's what you'll use to sign in. If you haven't started the free trial and you just want to purchase the app, or even if you don't purchase the app, we do provide a free trial if you download it from the App Store. You can then create an account from scratch and get going. The only difference is you won't have those global Jeppesen charts, and the free trial that we offer through those JeppFD web pages is on our highest tier plan, the Performance Plus subscription plan. So I definitely recommend you go with that free trial rather than the default free trial, which is the lowest tier plan. And like I said, it doesn't include the Jeppesen global Jeppesen charts. So following the downloading and signing in, what we have next, and let me go ahead and switch over here back to Keynote. There we go. So next up, we have transferring your Jeppesen charts. And again, if you've started that free trial, you do not need to transfer any of your charts because you get global Jeppesen charts for free. But when you're done with your free trial and you're ready to purchase ForeFlight and move over to it, or if you just don't even start with the free trial, you just go straight to ForeFlight, then you'll need to deactivate your Jeppesen charts in JeppFD and then activate them in ForeFlight. And this is a very, very easy process. So these next couple slides will just walk through how that works. So to deactivate the charts in JeppFD, all you have to do is you open your iOS settings app. You go down on the left-hand side, you scroll down to the list of apps and you select JeppFD. And then you scroll to the very bottom of the list of JeppFD settings, and there's something called deactivate at the bottom. You just tap that to enable it. You leave the settings app and you open JeppFD. And assuming you selected that deactivate switch, as soon as you open JeppFD, it'll show you this pop-up that asks you to proceed with the deactivation. So all you do is you tap proceed, and then it's done. And your charts have been deactivated, and you'll have to sign back in to reactivate them in JeppFD. So at that point, you can then go and activate the charts in ForeFlight. So having started your ForeFlight trial, having signed into ForeFlight, all you have to do is you tap More in the bottom right, and from there you tap Jeppesen in the bottom right, just under where it says Account. You tap Sign In, and then you sign in with your username and password. And this is an important distinction from how you activate your charts in JeppFD. In JeppFD, you activate it using a site key. In ForeFlight, you actually authenticate your Jeppesen account with your actual username and password, so make sure you have those handy. Once you do that, you just tap Install Coverage on this next page, and it will allow you to select which coverage you want to install. So here it shows the list of available coverages. For one of those options, there are no more seats available, but the one where it says Install, that has some seats available. It has 6 seats available. So you just tap Install, it installs the coverage, and it will automatically start downloading them. But you can also tap that Manage All Jeppesen Downloads button, and it will take you to ForeFlight's Downloads view, where you can then download those charts. As you can see there, the Jeppesen downloads are broken into en route charts and terminal charts. Unlike other downloads you can set up in ForeFlight, and we'll look at some of those other downloads in just a minute, but unlike those other downloads, the Jeppesen chart downloads are all grouped together in these items. So they all download at once, and as a result, the downloads tend to be pretty large. You can see that some of those are close to 1 gigabyte in size. No matter what Jeppesen chart coverages you install, so again, this is assuming you're not using the global chart coverages that you get with the free trial. Even if you have, for example, only US coverage with Jeppesen charts, you will still get global en route charts. That's one of the benefits of using your Jeppesen charts in ForeFlight, is you do get those global en route charts. And then the terminal charts are relevant for whatever your coverage is. And in this case, you can see that there are 2 downloads for the en route charts. That's simply because when this video was recorded, we were close to one of the chart cycle cutover dates. And so ForeFlight will automatically line up the next cycle's downloads before the current cycle expires. And that just ensures that you can have those charts downloaded and installed. And so when the cutover date comes and goes, it'll just automatically switch to using the new data. So moving on here, in addition to those Jeppesen charts, obviously you have Jeppesen charts. Those are going to be the primary ones you'll be using. There are a ton of other charts and data and resources available in ForeFlight that even if you're not planning to use them, it's worth taking a quick look at them just to see what's there. You may decide that although you primarily use your Jeppesen charts, obviously the IFR en route charts with Jeppesen, maybe you would prefer to use the FAA's sectional for any VFR flying you're doing. And so you do have those options. So I'm going to switch over to the video clip for this one, and you can see how to go and activate those other chart downloads.
Additionally, ForeFlight provides a rich collection of resources from the FAA, NAV Canada, or Eurocontrol, depending on your location. So feel free to download these as supplements to your Jeppesen charts, which are still the default for all charts in ForeFlight. Tap into your region's download settings menu at the top of the Downloads view to select additional charts and data types. Enable the chart and data types at the top, and select the states, provinces, or countries below. Then tap back to download your selections. Once complete, all the data you selected will be available for offline use during a flight.
Right, so like you saw there, it's worth checking out some of those other downloads just to see what's there. Even if you decide that you don't want to use any of those and you just want to stick to exclusively Jeppesen charts, your Jeppesen charts will always appear at the top of the list anytime you're viewing, for example, charts or plates, airport procedures, airport diagrams. ForeFlight will always prioritize Jeppesen charts when they're available over any others. So even if you choose not to install any of those, they'll stay out of your way when you're actually flying and planning flights. So next up, we're getting into the steps to get ready to get started with ForeFlight that anyone would take, even if they're not coming from Jeppesen, even if they're not using Jeppesen charts. one of the great benefits of ForeFlight is it can calculate performance calculations for your flights. And so in order to do that, you need to set up aircraft profiles. And that allows ForeFlight to get the climb, cruise, and descent performance data that it can then use to crunch those numbers and give you some really highly accurate calculations for upcoming flight plans. So I'm going to pull up the video clip for that, and you can see what you need to do to set up these aircraft profiles.
Adding aircraft profiles for the aircraft you plan to fly is essential so that ForeFlight can properly calculate performance information, file flight plans, and more. Go to More, Aircraft, and tap the plus button at the top to start a new profile. Move down the list and add basic details like aircraft registration, aircraft type, color, and more. Tap Performance Profiles to view the en route performance profiles available for your aircraft type, if supported. These built-in profiles use OEM-sourced performance data to accurately calculate en route times and fuel flows at all weights, altitudes, and temperatures, and are exclusive to the Performance Plus subscription plan included with your trial. For more information on these and other Performance Plus features, check out our guide, Performance Planning in ForeFlight Mobile, available alongside many other helpful resources in ForeFlight's Documents view. Tap Make Default at the bottom of any profile's detail page to automatically use that profile when planning future flights. Move down the page and confirm that the auto-populated altitudes, weights, and fuel details match your own aircraft. Then specify your aircraft's ICAO filing codes so you can file flight plans right from ForeFlight. The ICAO filing quick reference guide in the Documents view is another great resource if you're not sure which codes apply to your aircraft. After you've filled in these essential fields, tap Make Default at the bottom of the page to set the new aircraft profile as your default for flight planning.
All right, so one of the things you saw in that clip is something I want to emphasize again, which is using the Documents view if you have any questions about ForeFlight. There's a huge number of resources in the Documents view, not only documents about ForeFlight, but documents from the FAA if you have a US subscription, or from NAV Canada or Eurocontrol if you have a Canadian or European subscription. But in addition to that, in the ForeFlight Drive, you have just a huge number of helpful resources. We have multiple pilots guides, both covering the main pilots guide, which is I think over 500 pages at this point, and covers pretty much everything in ForeFlight, other than what's covered by some of these other guides, which are more specific guides covering, for example, filing a flight plan in ForeFlight, some of the performance-only features that you get with the Performance Plus plan. There's one on the weight and balance specifically. There's one on logbook. So again, if you ever have any questions about ForeFlight, maybe you see a feature and you want to learn how it works, obviously you can go watch some of our help videos at foreflight.com/videos, but the pilot's guide is always there and always available if you ever have any questions like that. So I highly recommend downloading that so you can access it at any time. So we have had a number of questions come in, and I'm going to briefly answer a couple of those before we move on to this next segment. So one thing we should have mentioned early on is that ForeFlight is an iOS application, and it's only available on iPad and iPhone. So it's not supported on Android, and there are no plans to make it available on Android. No, another question was, will customers who are outside the US still have access to that 30-day free trial, even though JeppFD won't be discontinued for them until later in 2022? The answer is yes. Anyone can access those 30-day free trials, whether you're in the US or out of the US. And in fact, the way we set up that free trial, we made it so that it'll try to automatically determine where you are. And so if you're in the US, it will give you the US region. If you're in Europe, for example, then it will give you the Europe region. And so rather than having access to FAA documents and FAA charts and data, you'll have access to European charts and data and documents. So definitely recommend, regardless of where you are, go and download that free trial, because it's just a great way to learn how to use ForeFlight and see how great Jeppesen charts are within ForeFlight without having to deactivate your existing Jeppesen chart coverage from JeppFD. Okay, so moving on here, we now are moving to the point where we're going to plan a flight. And so having set up that aircraft profile, that is what will enable ForeFlight to start calculating the performance results once we enter a route and start setting up those details. So I'll go ahead and queue up that video.
You're now ready to plan your first flight. There are two places in the app where you can build a flight plan. The Maps view provides a map-based planning workflow, while the Flights view provides a streamlined form-based workflow, and is also where you file flight plans and generate a pre-flight briefing. We'll look at the Maps view for now, but you can always send flight plans between these views using the Send To buttons. Enter the Maps view and open the layer selector in the top left to enable Jeppesen IFR and route charts, as well as any other weather and informational map layers. Tap the FPL button at the top of the page to expand the flight plan editor. Make sure your new aircraft and performance profiles are selected on the left. Then type in your departure and destination airports, and set an estimated time of departure on the right. Tap Routes to open Route Advisor and view ForeFlight's optimized recommended route, another Performance Plus exclusive, along with ATC cleared routes and others. Tap on a route and confirm your choice to update the route editor and view its calculated performance results just below. You can now send the route to the Flights view to generate a briefing and file it with ATC.
All right, and so that's the basics of how to get started with flight planning in ForeFlight. As you can see, once you get those essential first steps completed, downloading your charts, setting up your aircraft profile, then from there, it's really, really easy just to plan any kind of flight. As you saw there, you can do it from the Maps view, which is an easier way to flight plan if you're not going to be flying IFR, for example, and you just want to set up a VFR flight. But even if you are flying IFR, the route advisor makes it easy to find a good route. And especially if you have a Performance Plus subscription plan, which is what you get with that free trial, you get the recommended route, which when Sam Gilliss earlier on in the presentation referred to cleared as filed, that is what that recommended route is doing. It's looking for routes that have been cleared by ATC for the type of aircraft you have. And so it will always prioritize those to make it more likely that whatever you file is what ATC is going to give you. So moving on here, now that we've looked at the basics of setting up your aircraft profiles and planning a flight, we're going to look at how to view Jeppesen charts in ForeFlight. Something we've heard from JeppFD customers who are making this transition is sometimes they say that it's difficult to view Jeppesen charts in ForeFlight, or they're not sure how to do it, and it's not quite as simple as in JeppFD. The truth is it is very simple. The steps are slightly different. Obviously, whereas JeppFD is an app that is really dedicated to only viewing charts, and ForeFlight is quite a bit more complex, and so there's more moving parts involved. There is a very simple workflow to pull up the Jeppesen charts you need. And in fact, the ForeFlight developers have taken a lot of inspiration from JeppFD in how we designed the process for viewing Jeppesen charts in ForeFlight. And so once I get this next video started, you'll see what that process looks like and really how similar it is to JeppFD.
Accessing Jeppesen procedure plates and airway manuals in ForeFlight Mobile is just as easy as in Mobile FliteDeck, and similar in many ways. Start with a route insert on the Maps view. Tap the Send To button near the bottom of the flight plan editor and tap Plates to create a new flight binder. Tap Close in the top left to collapse the binder drawer. The Flight Binder interface in ForeFlight was directly inspired by Mobile FliteDeck, with some notable improvements that make selecting and viewing plates faster and easier. Both apps use a column of buttons on the left to organize plates into different categories. Tap on a button to see which plates are available in that category. Tap on each plate's name to view it, and tap the checkbox on the right to select a plate. You can then quickly move through all selected plates using 2-finger swipe in Mobile FliteDeck and 3-finger swipe in ForeFlight. Unlike in Mobile FliteDeck, ForeFlight provides access to all the plates for both airports in the same column, so you don't have to toggle between them. ForeFlight also organizes the plate categories to match the order you access them during the flight. Airport diagrams and information for the departure airport come first, while the same plates for the destination airport come last. ForeFlight also omits plate categories that you don't need for a flight, such as SIDS for the destination airport and STARS for the departure airport. Approach procedures for the departure airport are still available in the event of a return to base scenario. ForeFlight's Plates view also provides many other benefits beyond just organizing and viewing plates. The more flexible annotation mode lets you mark up plates with shapes, text, and notes. The configurable instrument panel at the bottom of the screen provides quick access to real-time flight and route data. And you can easily hide it and the toolbar just by tapping on the plate. Tap the red button at the top of a plate to instantly view all active NOTAMs relevant to it. And finally, ForeFlight displays your current position on top of any geo-referenced airport, procedure, arrival, or approach plate for all business subscriptions and for individual Pro Plus subscriptions and above. Go one step further by tapping the Send To button and overlaying the plate directly on the map to augment it with ForeFlight's powerful chart, weather, and informational layers. To view the Jeppesen Airway Manual and other documents, tap on the Documents tab and open the Jeppesen drive on the left. Tap the Download button in the top right corner to download all the documents to your device and automatically update them when new versions are published. For more information on the essential first steps to take with a new ForeFlight account, including linking your Jeppesen chart coverages to access them in ForeFlight, visit foreflight.com/firststeps.
All right, so as you could see there, at the very end of that video, that was the first steps page that I was referring to, that has all of these instructions that we've just covered if you want to review them and get more details on them. But as you could see in that last video, the flight binders interface in ForeFlight is very similar to the JeppFD interface. And again, we hope that it's an improvement on it in terms of just having an easier to use layout and just making it more intuitive to use to set up and access your Jeppesen charts before and during a flight. So we're going to move into Q&A here. And again, here are all of those links that you saw on the previous slide. So if you're interested in starting that trial, again, you can go to foreflight.com/JeppFD. I'm just going to leave this up here as we get to some of these questions. So a great question here is related to the Smart Notes feature that JeppFD has, and many customers refer to them as ball flags. And so those are the the flags along your route line that you can tap on to get information about airspace, frequencies, all that stuff relevant for your flight. So that is something that the ForeFlight team is working on designing for ForeFlight. We're working on, it's not going to be the exact same feature like you saw with flight binders. The goal is to have the same value of the feature as in JeppFD, but improve on it with a more intuitive design and other changes that we hope will make the feature even more useful and easier to use. So that's something that the ForeFlight team is working on designing. I don't have a timeline to share right now for when it will be available, but it is in development. Another question here. Our flight department currently uses AirInc for flight planning and filing. With filing flight plans from ForeFlight, how are these recalled in our FMS? So that's a really good question, and we do actually support FMS uplink to your panel. If you have an FMS from one of the following companies, Satcom Direct, Honeywell, or Collins. So if you have any of those types of FMS, then it is possible to uplink flight plans from ForeFlight to your panel. That's something that is supported with the Performance Plus subscription plan. Another one here, I currently use flightplan.com for flight planning. I expect to continue using it in the future since it allows me to store EAPIS information for our international operations and does the filing for us. Is there a plan for ForeFlight to offer this service? So yes, actually, we do support EAPIS now. It's something that we just recently introduced, and so we're kind of slowly setting up more customers with it. But if you're interested in purchasing that, you can email sales@foreflight.com. That is something that you need to have Dispatch to use. Sam Gilliss mentioned that earlier. Dispatch is kind of our really premier flight planning product for business aviation. It's kind of like a really high-powered version of ForeFlight Web. But you can learn more about our EAPIS implementation by emailing sales@foreflight.com. How can I set an SIC on a flight plan so he can get the PDC, for example? So yeah, in terms of setting PIC or SIC, that's something that is going to be supported more with ForeFlight Dispatch. Without Dispatch, it is possible, of course, to file flight plans and to specify PIC and SIC. But with Dispatch, a flight planner or a self-dispatching pilot who's accessing Dispatch has the ability to set the PIC and SIC, and any of the flight documents, the briefing, the navlog, and all of the flight information will then be distributed to those pilots who have been assigned as PIC and SIC. So they will also receive the pre-departure clearance, which is something we do support as well. Sam, here's a good question for you. Is ForeFlight an EASA approved Type B EFB software?
Yeah, thank you, Sam. You actually read my mind. I was going to bring that one up, so I appreciate that. Yeah, that's so right now, ForeFlight, we are working very diligently on that approval for EASA Type B. So that is underway, and that is also, if you recall, why we are extending the sunset date into 2022 for customers that are not based in the U.S., so that we can get that functionality and that approval added, and not just for EASA, but some of the other regions as well. We'll be making sure that all of the required approvals and whatnot are appropriate to that region. So not at this point. It is being worked on right now, so that will be coming.
Here's another question. Do I need a ForeFlight subscription to view Jeppesen charts? And yes, the answer is yes. So unlike JeppFD, which is free to download and then you just sign in using your your Jeppesen subscription, ForeFlight is a paid subscription. Again, because as an app, it's far more powerful than JeppFD. There's a lot more you can do with it. So you can all you need to view the Jeppesen charts is the base subscription. So you could buy the $100 per year basic plus subscription plan. And with that, you could view your Jeppesen charts just like you do in JeppFD. Of course, if you go higher than that and purchase, for example, the Pro Plus subscription plan at $200 per year, that enables you to do things like overlay the plates on the maps and view your position on the plates like you were seeing in that last video. So if you only need to use ForeFlight as a chart viewer, you do have that option, and you can just get the most base level subscription for it. But going to higher subscription plans will allow you to do more and more with those Jeppesen charts and get even more utility out of them. Sam, if you want to take this question, will it be the same price as JeppFD if I just want to use it for Jeppesen charts? And I think your answer will probably build to some extent on my answer just now.
Yeah, taking a look at that, just making sure that I understand if it will be the same price. Yeah, because what you do is you, as I mentioned, your current Jeppesen chart coverage is not going to change. So the price of the chart service is still there. If that's the same, that does not change. Your coverage is still the same. So what is happening though is that, like Sam just mentioned, you will need to purchase the ForeFlight subscription to get the app so that you can view your Jeppesen charts. And as Sam mentioned, there's various levels depending on your needs. So it can be a very basic subscription or a higher level subscription that will unlock a lot of the other powerful features that ForeFlight offers. But it does have that flexibility to kind of offer that more simple type of subscription level where you're basically viewing your charts, but there's still a lot of other really great features included in that base level as well. So I hope that answered the question if I understood that correctly. If not, just maybe post a little bit more clarifying in the questions and we'll get back to it.
Yeah, no, I think you answered that pretty well. Here's another one for you. Is there a plan to include, or is there a plan to just include the subscription plan in the annual nav database subscription?
So not at this point. The subscription for the Jeppesen chart coverage that you purchase is separate from the nav data base subscription. But now that nav data would be for a panel such as a Garmin or Avidyne panel. As far as ForeFlight is concerned, ForeFlight already includes Jeppesen data. Nav data, aeronautical data, obstacle data, terrain data, that is already included in the ForeFlight app. So there is no need to purchase a separate data subscription for ForeFlight. But it's just the Jeppesen chart coverage that you would purchase, or if you already have that you would link into the ForeFlight subscription after you purchase the app.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out here actually that it is possible to buy Jeppesen charts through ForeFlight. So obviously, as you've seen during this webinar, you can link existing Jeppesen charts if you have a Jeppesen chart subscription. But for example, if you're coming up on renewal, it would be possible for you to not renew through Jeppesen, but instead purchase those charts through ForeFlight. And that would actually allow you to have those charts on all of your devices. You don't have to worry about seats and licenses and things. So with ForeFlight, you can sign into up to 3 devices at a time, and you'll automatically get your Jeppesen charts on all of those. Now, if you're in the situation where, as I think this person who just asked this question was in, if you have a panel subscription for your Jeppesen charts, obviously you have to continue purchasing those charts through Jeppesen because ForeFlight doesn't sell those types of panel subscriptions. But one of the convenient things with ForeFlight is that you can both link existing Jeppesen accounts by connecting your Jeppesen account and installing those coverages. And you can also purchase Jeppesen charts through ForeFlight. And you can do both at the same time if you're an individual. So that's just an interesting way where, for example, if you want to have some additional coverage that you don't have in your panel, it is possible to purchase those as part of your ForeFlight subscription. Here's another question. Can I view international charts from my subscription with Jeppesen on Pro Plus, or do I need the Performance Plus subscription? That's a great question. Any charts that you have as part of your Jeppesen subscription, or any Jeppesen charts you have as part of your ForeFlight subscription, regardless of who you purchase them from, you will always have access to all of them in ForeFlight. Even you don't even need Pro Plus to do that. Even on the most basic plan, the Basic Plus plan, $100 per year, you can still access any of your Jeppesen charts, no matter what they are. So the only difference really between how the different subscription plan levels handle Jeppesen charts, the only difference between them is some of those additional features, like being able to see your position on them, being able to overlay the charts on the map. And really, Pro Plus is the one that includes all of those. I don't believe you get anything extra in terms of using those charts with Performance. Now, there's lots of other really fantastic flight planning features you get with Performance Plus, so I absolutely recommend you check those out. But if your goal is just to maximize your use of your Jeppesen charts, then Pro Plus is a really great place to start.
So, Sam, if I could just interject here real quick on
Sure.
a question that we got. Basically, the question is there another option similar to JeppFD, which is free? And so I do want to address that. I did mention at the beginning that there, currently right now there's 3 options. That's JeppFD, which is a free download, ForeFlight, of course, and then there is a mobile app by Garmin Pilot, which is also a paid app as well. So after the sunset, there won't be a free option for a mobile device to view Jeppesen charts. You will be required to purchase ForeFlight, but like we've been mentioning, there's some very competitively priced options at the base level to do that. And as I mentioned, Garmin does have a paid app as well. But this, even when you get the base version of ForeFlight at the individual plus level, the difference in value that you're getting is tremendous, even at that very basic level. So there is a charge for it, but I really encourage you to try it out, take advantage of this 30-day free trial that will show you the highest level of ForeFlight, which I think you'll be amazed. I know I was when I first saw it. But you also get that complimentary subscription during the trial for worldwide Jeppesen charts. So that allows you to compare between ForeFlight and JeppFD. But you'll really see the value and start to understand why we're putting all the effort behind the ForeFlight app here, which is really the direction the industry is going, to have a very integrated application that synchronizes across the desktop web version, or from a schedule if you're in a business, aviation, or flight department. You can really start to begin to realize that you get this true schedule to mobile integration, and the efficiency that brings to flight operations is tremendous. So we really encourage everybody to try it out and take a look at that.
Great answer, Sam. We're at time here, so Sam, if you want to answer just this last question, when in 2022 will JeppFD be discontinued for Australian users? And if I'm not mistaken, your answer can actually apply to all non-US customers.
Yeah, that's correct, Sam. We don't have a set date here. It will be later, most likely in the second half of 2022. But we are going to make sure that the regulatory approvals needed and some of the gaps that we need to make sure we have closed, we're going to make sure that is done. So before we actually sunset for customers that are based outside of the US. So please stay tuned. More to come on that. No definitive date yet, but we will communicate that as soon as we have it.
All right, perfect. So thank you everyone for coming out for this webinar. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up now. If any of your questions were not answered, please email team@ForeFlight.com and they will be able to get back to you on the answers. We want to make sure that no one is leaving this webinar, not sure of something or wondering what they need to do. So just email team@ForeFlight.com and they will be able to answer any of the remaining questions you have. Again, just follow any of the links you can see on the screen here, ForeFlight.com/JeppFD if you're an individual, ForeFlight.com/JeppFD-business if you're a group account, or you can email sales@ForeFlight.com to directly contact our sales team, and follow any of those links you can see at the bottom, especially /first-steps, that third from the bottom bullet, to review all of these getting started materials again on that webpage. So thanks again, everyone, and we really hope that this has been informative and helped you get a good idea of what the transition from JeppFD to ForeFlight is going to be like. Sam, do you have any last thoughts you want to share?
Oh, I appreciate everybody's time today. And just a quick shout out, if you will happen to be at NBAA next week in Las Vegas, we will be there. Please stop by, and we would love to talk to you more about our favorite subject here, ForeFlight. So thank you very much, everyone.
Awesome. Yes, great reminder about NBAA. Yeah, so thanks everyone. And like I said, you should be able to see a recording of this video on ForeFlight.com/onfrequency starting tomorrow. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next webinar.